Welcome to the Business Spotlight on WXPM 98.5 FM, showcasing all the great local businesses in the area.
Welcome to the WXPM Business Spotlight. I'm Owen Young. Joining us in studio is Tina Antonelli, owner of Triptych in downtown Phoenixville. Tina, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your life up until this point?
My name is Tina. As far as the business, I have been a stylist for over 20 years. I've owned a hair salon, a few hair salons along the way for the past, 16 years. I became a stylist after I always wanted to do hair, but I ended up going to college instead, which was a wonderful experience. But after getting out and working in some different capacities, I realized I needed some sort of creative outlet, and the hair kept coming back to me. So I finally decided to just go back to school and get my certification to do hair, and I've been doing it ever since.
And so what is Triptych?
Triptych is mainly a hair salon, but because after many years of working with other people, it was always wonderful, but I decided I just wanted to try to do my own thing and have the flexibility that working by myself gives me. But I found a space in Phoenixville that was large enough for me to also have some retail space to sell other items other than hair services. So it's mainly a hair salon, but then it's also a gift shop. I've recently started adding some housewares, mainly secondhand housewares, because I love finding old pieces and giving them more life so that they don't end up in a landfill somewhere. Most of the items that I sell in the shop, I try to really focus on products that are locally made or sustainably made. And then the secondhand goes with that because there's a sustainability in being able to keep pieces going. And it's always changing. For the first couple of years, I was hosting events for local artists. So we would have a First Friday event where they could showcase, bring all of their friends in and have a show of their art. And then the art would stay on the walls for the month. Then people could come and appreciate it and hopefully purchase something to take home with them so that they could appreciate it at home as well and support those local artists. And I do continue to do that. I've just changed a little. There have been several new galleries in town, which is amazing. And so a lot of artists are getting to, be focused in those spaces. So I'm sort of shifting gear. I'll continue to do that. We currently have a few pieces by local artists that are still up for show. But we carry lots of gift items that are local, sustainable. I love to do that.
Do you design any of the products you sell?
I do not. I wish I had time for that. Yeah. My time is trying to find those people to support. My time is spent doing hair all day, and then in my free time, I like to, find local talent, and then also go out and find all these secondhand items that I like to bring back.
You have a very unique store. But there are a lot of other hair salons in Phoenixville. How do you deal with the competition there?
Sure. Luckily, I believe word of mouth is always probably your biggest marketing tool, and I feel like you tend to have people that are very much like you, like-minded people that will seek you out. So as far as I feel like there's always a place for everyone. One salon might cater more towards somebody that's looking for a certain style. My clients tend to be a little more low-key, lower maintenance. I feel like every salon offers a different feel, and it's just whatever a person is comfortable with. Some people love going to a salon where there are a lot of people around and several stylists. Some people like the fact that when they come in, it's me and them, and maybe every once in a while I'll have two people that I'm working on while somebody's color is processing. I'll be doing a haircut, because there's time in between. But as far as competition, I don't know. They always say that competition actually, keeps everybody working a little harder, and I don't really look at it as competition. I just look at it as different places offering different things. I know as far as my salon, I've always, from way back when I opened my first salon, I've always tried to carry more natural products, hair color that's free of many of the toxic ingredients that traditional older colors would have. Even our styling products are a little more organic and just a little more natural. So that sets me apart a little bit. A lot of people, back when I first started with those products, that was sort of a new thing. But now, 16 years later, it's become a little more normal that people are transitioning because it's better for the hair.
Right.
It's better for the person who's having that color on their hair, and it's better for me. I don't have to breathe ammonia all day long because, when I'm doing hair color. So it's little things like that I feel like set me apart. So.
I mean, would you consider that like a big draw for newer customers?
It can be. I mean, I don't. Obviously, if you were to visit the website, it'll say what products I'm using. Right. So, people can see that they are. And I absolutely have some people that are seeking that specifically. Yeah. And I've gotten a lot of new clients that way because they want something that's nothing's ever going to be 100% safe, obviously. Right. But they want something that is a little less toxic. So it definitely has benefited me doing that.
I mean, would you want to have a store like on the main Bridge Street, or?
For me, obviously, Bridge Street really does get the volume of traffic. I'm on Gay Street, which is sort of a little, sometimes forgotten little stretch. It seems to change every so often with what's happening. But I find because I'm offering a service and people are specifically coming for that service, that it's not a huge detriment being on a little side street. As far as the shop up front, yes, we could probably, I could always use a little more traffic, but honestly, I'm very lucky that the wonderful 260 Bridge Cafe has just opened up, and that draws a lot of people. We've just got new sidewalks. That's a huge thing. So it's like people feel comfortable walking. They were a little precarious before. Not that it hindered people, but it does help. So thank you, Phoenixville, for bringing us new sidewalks. I feel very comfortable where I am, and Bridge Street can be saved for the businesses that really need that foot traffic to bring people in, because they're trying to sell, items. I'm more service based, so I'm okay being a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah, that's all right. What is your relationship with the other business owners on that street?
So again, it has changed. Gay Street is a little funky just because, it'll be a couple businesses, and then we have residents, so it's sort of like there's me and then there's a couple spaces before I get to the next business down, but we all try to be friendly, and, we'll pop into each other's with, space with whatever might be happening, on the street, or just a general like, hey, how's it going today? Want to see what's going on in here? I have a new neighbor next door he is a gallery, Lens Black Box Gallery, and he recently came over. He's a photographer, so he is looking to do some headshots for folks. And he came over to say, hey, do you want to partner up? If somebody wants hair done for their headshot, we can set that up and make it a thing. So we really do try to work together and try to get the block going and be supportive of each other.
And you talked about how you support local artists and local art. Is there anything you'd like to see changed about how Phoenixville presents local art?
I mean, Phoenixville really is doing an amazing job. As I said earlier, several new galleries have opened, a couple on Church Street, a couple on Bridge Street. There were already a few existing galleries. That's a tough one. I mean, I just want to see it keep going. I can't think of any negative aspect about what's going on right now. So in terms of changing anything, I just say keep it going. There's one local artist, Emily Mullet, who last year planned an art walk around town in October, and that was amazing. There was a map of, she partnered with businesses, whether they were a gallery or not, and said, hey, do you want to host an art show? I think there might have been, I want to say there were, about 15 places that you could go walking around town just to go pop into different businesses and see local art. That was amazing. And they will do that again this year. So
that's great.
There's so much good stuff going on in the art scene.
Yeah, I feel like art and music is kind of the driving force behind what draws people to Phoenixville.
Absolutely.
Before we started the broadcast, you spoke about your dislike for mainstream stuff currently. What's your take on the local acts that are coming through Phoenixville and the local music?
Again, Phoenixville, for being as small a town as it is, really also does an amazing job of bringing music to town. Steel City, obviously, always has music coming through, and they can be local acts. They are also national acts, which is amazing. Colonial, also music very frequently coming through. TBD Bar, now that it's summertime, they very often have live music for free outside, and they're typically local folks, a lot of times just moms and dads who are making music on the side and want to get out and play. I love that there's an outlet for those people that, I very much love to support anyone who's doing that just for fun, for their own enjoyment. And as far as mainstream, we talk about why support WXPM. I don't dislike mainstream music. I just sometimes get frustrated with mainstream stations that tend to play the same music over and over. And when your brother came in and said, hey, I'm looking for sponsorships for this new local radio station, my ears perked up because I thought, oh, what is this? Is this? And once I started listening and realizing, wow, I've never heard that song, or I haven't heard that song in forever. And the song after that, another one. Oh, these are songs that just don't get played on the radio by anyone anymore. So it's great. I mean, I luckily I was at a very young age, I got into music thanks to my parents. My dad and my mom are very into music. So as young people, my siblings and I got into music. I can remember listening to WFIL on my little, radio on my dresser. So I've loved music my whole life, and I'm always looking for something new. And so even if it's old music, there's so much. I find myself even now going back and saying, I never listened to, this band from the 50s or the 60s, and I try to listen to it now. So that's why I was so excited when I came across this, and goes in hand with trying to support as much local business, local activity as I can. So it just seemed to make sense to want to support this radio station that's trying to do this. And they're even helping to support you in you learning, your craft of audio visual. And I don't know, I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for for lots of people.
I mean, yeah, we got to kind of keep everything getting like progressively more different just to set yourself apart.
Sure.
Because so many things have already been done.
Sure.
And, that obviously corresponds to running a business. I think you got a pretty unique store.
Yeah.
What was the reason behind like setting up the boutique and the gift shop and a hair salon at the same time?
Yeah. So my first salon was actually in Philadelphia, and it was the same situation where I just felt like, I love to do hair, and it is what makes, that's how I make my living. But I have lots of other interests. I love, again, I love old things. I love to support other people. So it just seemed to go hand in hand. And I'm also somebody that never sits still. I always need something to do, almost to a fault. Sometimes I go a little overboard. But it just seemed it gave me other outlets to be able to be working with things that I love. So that was always the biggest aspect of it. In fact, so my original salon was in Philadelphia, and I was living there in the neighborhood. But when I decided that I wanted to make a transition out of the city for a variety of reasons, I still love Philadelphia. And in fact, I still go and work in Philadelphia 1-2 days a week in my old salon that I passed on to one of the other stylists. I knew, because in our business, you work on commission, basically. Right. So you can't it's not just, I'm going to quit this job and get a new job somewhere else. You actually have to build up a clientele and find a way to make that money. So when I knew I wanted to make that transition, I started looking for a location that I could start something closer to, I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to move. I didn't know absolutely Phoenixville, but I knew it was this general area. And I found a little spot in Bridgeport, PA, which is right between Norristown and King of Prussia. A lot of people don't even know where Bridgeport is. It's this little blip. I found a wonderful little spot there that made sense. And I was there for, I think it was about 4 years. And unfortunately, when we had the big Ida storm that came through a few years ago, I was flooded. I went under about 4.5, 5 feet of water. Jeez. So at that point, I had already moved to Phoenixville. And I was still working in Philadelphia. I was driving, an hour to Philadelphia 4 days a week. And then I was driving a half hour to Bridgeport 3 days a week, because I was working that much just to help myself build out here and get set. So when that happened, I thought, okay, if I can, now that I live in Phoenixville, if I can find a space in Phoenixville, I would like to make that transition, which I was able to do. When I was in Bridgeport, it was strictly a salon, because the location of it was not an area where there was foot traffic. Right. So there really was not, it did not make sense to have any of those additional gift items or, things that people would come in to buy, even if they weren't getting their hair done. Mm. So when I was moving to Phoenixville, I missed that side of the business from, when I did it in the city. So I thought, let me find a space where I can have that as well. Because it's so many people come into the shop now just off of the street, and they walk in and they're looking around at the things that I have, and they say, oh, because the hair salon is sort of set in the back, and they look at, oh, and you're a hair salon too? I'm like, actually, I'm a hair salon. All that stuff up front is just kind of the bonus, it's just like a little extra. So yeah, I guess I just I really wanted to continue to have that, that other side of the business, which is why I decided to set it up that way. It gives me an outlet. And I also believe it's like a cross marketing, because I have people that are coming in to get their hair done, and they're like, oh, I need a gift for somebody for their birthday. And while they're getting their hair done, they can pick up a gift, and they're, you covered two things in one visit, and vice versa. I've had people that come in off the street unknowingly, and, they see gifts and they buy something and then they say, oh, can I have a card? And then they end up calling and coming in to get their hair done. So I've always looked at it as also just another way to bring, it's like a marketing tool. Just another way to bring people into your space.
Because you've worked at so many locations of similar salons, would you want to open up other locations of Triptych?
It's never off the table. Sometimes I feel like, getting bigger sounds great, but it's maybe not always. It's sort of like, why not just focus on one main place and make it good or great, make it great. But, sometimes you start spreading yourself thin when you add other layers to it. So, I don't know. That's to be determined. And the other question is a lot of times, will you bring in other stylists? Right. And I've also considered that. I do at times miss just, that close working with other stylists because you feed off of them. You learn new things, from each other. So I have been thinking about that recently. The unfortunate part right now for me is that I have created this retail space in the front, and my space is so small that if I was to add another stylist, I would have to take away from that space up front. So that's actually what I've really been thinking about lately. Okay, if I did want to do this, how would the flow? You have to have enough space for people to feel comfortable. So I can't say never, but yeah, I it's always something in my head that when you have a business, you always have to be thinking ahead, thinking of new ideas, change. You have to be somebody that's okay with change if you're going to have a business, because every day everything changes. Right. Yeah.
I want to know a little bit more about the salon in Philly.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to know.
Yeah. So I was living in Fishtown, which now most people know the neighborhood of Fishtown. But when I moved to Fishtown in 2000, I think it was 2002, early 2002, it was very unknown. When people would ask where I lived, they'd say, oh, that's like Northeast Philly. And I said, no, actually, I was working on South Street at the time. And honestly, it was, if you were going to drive, it was a 10-minute drive just the other side of town. Fishtown is really part of center, Philadelphia proper. Now it is expanded to, it's like the hot spot for everyone to go. But when I first was living there, there wasn't much in terms of businesses. There were businesses, but it wasn't like you might think. And at the time, I always had a dream of opening my own salon, but it didn't seem like it was going to be possible. And every time I took the L train frequently to get to work. And every time I would walk down Girard Avenue, I would actually point out the place that I wanted to be. The first thing that came to that town was Johnny Brenda's, which is a bar, restaurant, music venue. Now, when it first started, the music venue was not there, but they eventually added that. It had always been Johnny Brenda's, but it was sort of an old school local bar. They decided to sell, and these two business owners decided to buy it, and it changed over to becoming, I hate to use this term, but it became like a hipster bar, so... And so there was this little spot right next to them that it just, I don't know why, I guess in my head, I knew that it had a ton of foot traffic of everybody going to the L, even though where I lived on the other side of the street, not on Girard Avenue, but a couple blocks in. And to get to the L, it was typical that you would cross to that side of Girard Avenue to get down to the L. So it had so much foot traffic. And it, at the time, had the front of it had a big window. It even had a little sliding takeout window from the convenience store that it had been years before, which was just kind of cute. But the front had these little pinkish tiles, and it just, I don't know, it always called out to me as being like the best little building and a perfect location. And I just, every time I would walk past, that's where I would do it. Because at the time, there really weren't any other salons in the area. So it seemed to make sense that opening a salon in town would be good because there wasn't a whole lot of other competition. And just the location seemed wonderful. So, yeah, that's how I decided to go there. And it started out just being me. Within a year, somebody had approached me and said, I was starting to get really busy. I was working a second job just to make sure, I was making enough money it was a retail job, just to make sure I could pay my bills as I was growing my business. But then I got to a point where I was getting pretty busy. Someone approached me and said, hey, I know this person who's a hairstylist. She's looking for somewhere to go. So I brought her on, and little by little built it up to have a handful of stylists. That we only had room for 3 people to be working at a time. But once we got a little bigger, we would rotate days. We went from being open 4 days a week to being open 5 days to eventually 7 days a week. And it just kind of kept growing from there. Yeah.
I got one last question. It's kind of 2 questions in one. You, and in talking to some successful people and watching how, business owners operate, and when they become successful, there's always something that they've done, like every day, just to tell themselves to that's where they're going to end up. And that's what, you always point out the one building. Is that kind of key in being successful, do you think? Is just having something to tell yourself every day?
Yeah. Most business owners have this idea, and the biggest thing is you just have to work hard. You have to, it does become your life. In ways it's like your child. You do everything you can to nurture it. It's unfortunate. I've seen some businesses we had when I was in Fishtown. There was this great little market that started down the street. It was amazing. And he was doing all the right stuff. He was maybe a year or 2 ahead, where the neighborhood wasn't there yet to support him. I mean, he had a lot of support, but he was a little too early, and it's so unfortunate. I feel so fortunate that I just happened to a lot of times, most things that go well, it's the right time, the right place, a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work. So yeah, I guess you just get up. I think the fact that you're doing it for yourself is motivation enough that you get up in the morning. Okay, you whatever you decide to do, it's you deciding to do it. It's not somebody else telling you how to do it, or you have to do it. And that really is, I think, what keeps you going. I can do. In ways you can do whatever you want. In some ways you can't, because, you still have to accommodate other folks and yeah. So, but I don't know. It's a tough one. You asked earlier, as far as a question and being, what would your advice be to someone else who wants to start their own business? And I have lots of mixed emotions, because there are days where I say, you know what, I would love to just go get a paycheck and stop having to hustle. It's a hustle. Yeah. You have to, you're always at it. But there's nothing more rewarding than being able to kind of set your own deal. You just kind of, you get to make it whatever you want. So yeah, if it's something you want to do, absolutely try. And I think I've seen so many people come through, sitting in my chair. I can name several. I won't get into names, people that, were working a job and thought, I would really love to have my own business. I would really love to do this thing. And they decided to give it a whirl, and they've been successful, and it's just such a good thing to see. And it's because they worked hard. They really put their mind to it and and it can happen. Like I really feel like, and that's it. It really does come down to just hard work and determination. And when you get frustrated and you feel like you've been beaten down, you just have to keep going. And it pays off. It really does. So do it.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about yourself or your business just to close?
No, just come check us out. Check out the space, and you might find something fun. Otherwise, also support WXPM. I mean, it's a great little radio station, and I hope it can grow. And thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Yeah. It was great having you.
Great.
You.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Spotlight on WXPM 98.5 FM. Check out WXPM985.org for more great local content.